let's table the binary decision tree until the next topic. I want to, because we're talking about practice and learning, I wanted to talk about deliberate practice.
Okay, sure.
So you mentioned deliberate practice in your article. How can we? So can you briefly talk about deliberate practice? How is it different than the mindless repetitions of normal practice? And how does that apply to trading? How can someone apply this concept of deliberate practice to their trading and their practice?
Okay, great. So the way I did it for myself was I used the NinjaTrader Market Replay as the tool for that deliberate practice. I would download the data on NinjaTrader and start uh, playing playing it back, not too fast, because if you replay the market too fast, then it distorts your sense of time.
100%.
Yeah. So maybe 3 times the speed at most, and then focus on one technique at a time. For example, let's talk about something that's fairly simple. Breakout trading. I see a breakout. How do I trade it? That requires you to first sit down and think about what you want to do, right?
Hmm.
And let me show you, because it's easier to show you what I mean than just talking about it. Well, first of all, I think when you're identifying anything in trading, you have to know the probability of that thing. And I've studied this. Leg one, leg two is the highest probability setup in trading. The probability is actually above 90%.
Is that above 90% given certain characteristics of it, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
given certain characteristics of it, it's market makes these two-legged moves all the time. So it's the highest probability setup, really. But once you have this leg one, odds of getting this leg two, sometimes it's smaller than leg one, but getting something of a leg two is more than 90%. Now, you have to characterize it. This is one of the ways to characterize it, to look for microchannels, okay? And find a method to quantify it. So this is that method, right? There are 10 qualities that quantifies a macrochannel. So if you have all of them, that probability is very, very high. It's really above 90%. So if you go through this list down here, there are 10 characteristics for a microchannel. Do you see all of them?
Yes, I see them all.
Yeah, I mean, when you are trading during the trading hours, or you're doing your practice, if your focus is breakouts, you have to go through this list. So the first step of the deliberate practice is to have a good foundation for what you want to do, the understanding that enables you to do something as a trader. Now, one of the things here is that if you read this page, I say knock off 5% probability for each missing strength factor. So these are the strength factors.
Right.
There are 10 of them. If you don't see any of these, you knock off 5% for each. Your probability is down to 50% now.
Right.
It's not 90% anymore.
That makes
But
sense.
yeah, but the more of these that you see, the higher the probability of that second leg up. And this is regardless of the context. Like, you don't remember, you don't know anything about higher time frame context, what the market is doing now, why it is happening. You don't know any of that. You're just thinking like a computer. You're just looking at that small piece of chart and trying to quantify it and look for a trade to participate in the outcome of that setup. So you have to have this. You have to spell it out very clearly for yourself. Any concept that you are practicing. Then you start your practice session and try to follow the measurement techniques, the method that you have devised for your trading as closely as you can, and score yourself. Did I do everything correctly? There's a feedback loop, right? So you start to trade and see if you are following the steps that you said you would do, and how well you are following those steps. Are you jumping the gun? Are you not patient enough? Are you too slow to press the mouse button? And that builds the skill. But you focus on one area only. So for example, if I'm practicing this chart, there are a lot of different things that I can do. But if I'm focusing on this concept of
Mm,
breakouts and second legs,
yeah,
that would be the only thing that I'm allowed to do in that practice session.
that makes sense. So if I'm going to summarize what you're saying, the first step is, let's say, for example, there's one skill, which is breakouts.
Mhm.
Within that major skill of breakouts, are you specifying micro channel breakouts? Because you could have a trading range and a 1 bar breakout. Or
Yes.
so you're saying first decide what you're working on, and then
Mhm.
within that category, a subcategory of
Correct.
breakouts in the form of microchannels. And then before you can start practicing, you have to understand that concept. And that's what you've done here. You've pretty much, through your own research, you've understood the microchannel and all the characteristics that make it strong. Once you know what you need to learn, then you isolate that skill and go to market replay so that you can practice that specific skill and then grade yourself only on the execution of that skill.
Yes.
Is that
And
right?
then you add nuances, right? So that's the third step. This is just one chart. Can I trade this correctly on 20 different charts?
Mm.
So every chart has a small nuance, like it's not exactly like the previous one. There are differences. So just because I replay one day and I'm doing everything correctly doesn't mean that I can do it on the next day and the next day. So the second or the third part is to now practice the same skill on different days that have different price structures and see if I can still do it correctly or not.